So this week we continue and move forward in the Sefer Shemos, in the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And in Parshas Va'era, in the very first psukim of this parsha, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself to Moshe Rabbeinu. וידבר אלוקים אל משה ויאמר אליו אני השם וארא אל אברהם אל יצחק ואל יעקב בקהל שקי ושמי השם לא נודעתי להם. וגם הקים מויסיאס בריסי איתם לא עושה להם את ארץ כנען. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says לכן אמור לבני ישראל אני השם והוצאתי אתכם מתחת סבלוס מצרים והצלתי אתכם מעבודתם וגואלתי אתכם בזרוע נטויה ושפוטים גדולים ולקחתי אתכם לי לעם והויסי לכם לאלוקים וידעתם כי אני השם אלוקיכם. Thank you. המוציא אתכם מתחת סבלוס מצרים. And it is based on this posuk that we drink dalet koises beleil haseder keneged dalet leshones shel geula v'hoitzeisi v'hitzalti. I will take you out of Eretz Mitzrayim. I will salvage you from slavery. I will redeem you. V'ge'alti eschem b'zroya natuya v'lokachti eschem li la'am, and I shall take you to be my people, my nation. V'hoitzeisi v'hitzalti v'ge'alti v'lokachti. These are four different expressions of geula. Dalet l'shoyne shel geula, and that is why we drink dalet koises beleil haseder. That is only one reason and one interpretation that we find in Rashi and in the Rashbam in the beginning of Perek Arvei Psochim. There's another suggestion that we find in Tosfos and Sukkah Daf Lamed Ches. In Sukkah Daf Lamed Ches, Tosfos writes mistama. And that's an interesting expression by Tosfos, mistama. Tosfos says, I guess, or we guess, that the reason we drink Dalet Koises is because B'Leil Seder we say 4 brachos. And it is appropriate that each of these brachas has a kois. The bracha should be kois shel bracha. So the 4 brachas that we say, B'Leil Seder, is Kiddush, Halel, Berchas HaMazon, and the bracha of Geula, the Berchas HaHaggadah. And that is why we drink Dalet Koises, because each of these brachas deserves a kois. And that is the mitzvah of Dalet Koises. However, Mitzvos Dalet Koises is a mitzvah into itself. So besides the mitzvahs of Kiddush and Berchas HaMazon and the bracha of Halal, we also have the mitzvah of Dalet Koises. Why would that not be considered ein oisin mitzvos chavilos? So we have a basic concept, a basic idea that appears 3 times in Shas. Soiteches omedalef brochos memtes omedalef and psochim kuv beis omed beis. Ein osim mitzvot chavilot. Each mitzvah deserves its own space, its own room, its own time, its own kais. So the Gemara says in psochim kuv beis omed beis, we do not say berchas hamazon and Kiddush on the same kais. We need 2 different kaises. What is that? So how come we say a bracha on a kais and we perform 2 mitzvahs with this same bracha on this same very kais? Kiddush and Dalet kaises, Berchas HaMazon and Dalet kaises. Why would that not be considered chavilos? And if Chazal wanted us to drink Dalet kaises, then we should have Dalet kaises besides the kais shel bracha. How would we manage 8 koises? Well, l'shitosi, you could drink grape juice, that it wouldn't be that terrible, unless you have sakeret, diabetes, then that would be a problem. But why would this not be considered chavilos? And the Sukkah of Dalet Koises brings us to chavilos once again, and that is the very last paragraph, the very last passage in Yerushalmi Mesechet Trumis, Nun Tes Omed Aleph. There's a question in Yerushalmi: could one be Yotzei Dalet Koises with Yayin Shel Shavios? And there are many different interpretations. What is the shaila? It's not found in Bavli. What is the shaila? Why not? Why yes and why no? So we'll come back to these basic sukkahs towards the end of today's shiur, but I would like to take the opportunity today and discuss the concept, the halacha of einois and mitzvahs, chavilos. So every week we deal with a different sugya, but I think there is chibi yesera, and it's especially interesting to discuss sugyas that are relevant and they are part of our Seder Hayom. So einois and mitzvahs, chavilos is a halacha, which is primarily in Shulchan Aruch Chaim, and it's nogea lamais and vary in different aspects, in different fields, in different shilas, and that will be our topic today. So 3 different sources in Shas we find. Ein osim mitzvot chavilot. It's a concept, and as usually, it's easier to understand abstracts when we give examples and make them tangible and realistic, halacha lemaisa. So, broches mem tesamad aleph. Chazal say that you cannot combine 2 broches in one siyum. And when you daven tefillas amida, you need to say Yud Ches broches. After Shmuel HaKotten was metaken berches aminim, it actually became 19 broches in Shmoyne Esrei. So the Shmoyne Esrei is still called Shmoyne Esrei, but it actually contains 19 broches. So you cannot combine 2 in one. For instance, say, Roifei choyle Am Yisrael v'sorleach la'avonoseim, or Matzmiach keren Yeshua v'boine Yerushalayim. Each brocha has its own siyum. And if you try to combine 2, that is ein oisen mitzvahs chavilos. Why not? Rashi doesn't say on the spot. Which brings us to source number 2, which is Psochem Kuf Beis Omid Beis. The Gemara says, you cannot say Berch Zamozan and Kiddush on the same kos. You need one kos for Berch Zamozan and another kos for Kiddush. Why can't you say both brochas on the same kos? Einois and mitzvahs chavilos. Why not? The Rashbam in Psochim says, Nera olav kemase. If you say 2 brochas on the same kos, it appears to the bystander, it appears as if mitzvahs are a burden to you and you want to bundle them together and just get over with them. So you say 2 brochas, I have a kos. Let's say both brochas on the same kos, just to get over with it. If you cherish your mitzvahs and you enjoy, if you bask in their performance, then you will dedicate time to each mitzvah and not try to combine 2 brochas in one to make it shorter. You will dedicate a kos as is appropriate to each and every brocha on its own, and you don't say 2 brochas on the same kos. And source number 3 brings us to Masechet Sotah Daf Ches Amud Aleph. So in Sotah we have 4 examples, but these 4 examples have some common denominator, and they are essentially different than the first 2 sources in brochas and in psochim. So Masechet Sotah, the Gemara says, Ein mashkin shtei soitos ka'achas. There's a din of hashkoas hasoita, hashkoas hasoita la'achar kinui v'stira. Ein mashkin shtei soitos ka'achas. 2 people come with their 2 respective wives to Beis Din for the ceremony of hashkoah. You don't do 2 together. Ve'ein metaran shnei mitzeroim ki yachod. 2 people that have tumas tzoras, that have a nega. So they come to achieve tahara. Ein roitzim shnei avodem ka'achas. 2 people come with their slaves. Both slaves want to continue their slavery. They do not wish to go free. They prefer slavery to freedom. Ein roitzim shnei avodem ka'achas ve'ein orfen shtei agolos ka'achas. That is egla arufa. So you don't bundle mitzvahs together. Why einois and mitzvahs chavilos? Why? So Rashi and Tosfos Sotah Daf Ches say the same as the Rashbam in Psochim Kuf Beis. Mepnei shenera olav kamasa va'odem shememaher lifroik masoi. Why bundle them together? You make an extra Moshev Beis Din for every Sotah, for every Ritziyah, and for every Egla Arufa. When you bring them together, we're doing this anyway, so let's finish them all off. That is not appropriate. Chazal say, Ein oisen mitzvahs chavilos chavivis. You dedicate ample time for each and every mitzvah, because each and every mitzvah deserves its own attention and its own kavod and honor. So When we observe the three sources, we realize that Chazal speak about Einos and Mitzvos, Chavilos in two different realms. In the mitzvahs that are incumbent upon the Yachid. Mitzvahs which are essentially, by their very nature, Avodas Elokim, like the Brochas and Tfilas Amid and Berchas Hamazon and Kiddush. Many times I explained that the backbone, the essence of Avodas Hashem is the mitzvahs of Seder Hayom, Shabbos, V'Moyed. All the others are about the result. And just a week ago we spoke about the concept. So two of the three sugyas, Psochim and Brochas, speak about Brochas, various different Brochas. Mesechet Brochas, it's about the Brochas of the Shemoines, the Berchas at Tefillah. And a separate siyum for every Brocha. Don't bundle them together. Psochim, similar concept. Berchas, Hamazon, and Avdolah, each of them deserves its own kais. Don't say two different Brochas on the same kais. Saita, we have four different mitzvahs. But the common denominator between the four of them is mitzvahs that are not upon the yochid. They are not by the very nature of Avodas Hashem. They are all about the outcome, about the result. About Kinyan Eved, about Taharas HaMetzora, about Egla Arufa. If a person was found and he was murdered and we don't know who did this crime. And Ashkos HaSoiter, Ritzias Avodim, Taharas HaMetzora, and Egla Arufa. These mitzvahs are mutal ala bezdin. And also by these mitzvahs, Chazal say, Ein oisem mitzvahs chavilos. So Rashi, the Rashbam and Toises, all offer the same explanation. Why not? Nera olav kemasa. Because it appears that mitzvahs are a burden to you, and they shouldn't be a burden. They should be a privilege, a pleasure, and you should bask and cherish your mitzvahs, and not ka'odam haporeach hoivoy. However, Toises and Moed Koten Tesamid Beis, Chesamid Beis offers a different explanation. And Tosis writes, Nerek Tzas. And therefore, I argue, B'ksuvim and in Shiurim, I think the Iker Tam is the one that Rashi, Rashbam, and Tosis suggest. Tosis in Moed Koten writes, Nerek Tzas. So, in Moed Koten of Chesamid Beis, Chazal don't mention the concept of Einos Mitzvos Chavilos. What do we find in Moed Koten? Ein Ma'arvin Simcha B'Simcha. And Tosis explains, why not? Kedei sheyehei liboy panui lakol simcha v'simcha. Doim ela ein oisem mitzvahs chavilos kedei sheyehei liboy panui lakol mitzvah v'mitzvah. So Tosfos suggests maybe these two concepts have something in common. Ein ma'arvin simcha b'simcha, because it is preferable that a person takes one simcha at a time. He should be able to bask in the simcha, to cherish the simcha, and really be happy, and not two in one. Similar way, Chazal say, Ein oisem mitzvahs chavilos kedei she'en liboy panui lekol mitzvah. So it always was apparent to me that the Chayodim and Klal Samaches, the Chayodim brings together many Yesoides and Klole Hazihiris b'mitzvahs. And in Siv Gimel, he writes, Ein oisem mitzvahs chavilos Shema lo yuchal lehizdareis b'shneihem. Why does he need to suggest an explanation number 3 if we already have 2 in Rashi, Rashbam, and Tosfos? So why do we have a need for suggestion number 3? Shema lo yuchal lehizdareis b'shneihem. So the Chayodim probably remembered Rashi and the Rashbam and Tosfos, 2 different Tosfos and 2 different sources. Maybe he means the same as Tosfos, not in Saita, but rather in Moed Koten. Moed Koten says, Sheyehei liboy ponui lekol mitzvah, kemo sheyehei liboy ponui lekol simcha. We could explain this formula in 2 different ways. Maybe it has something to do with kavonas mitzvah. Mitzvah sichas kavona. Sheyehei liboy ponui. Shuchal lachaven karui lekol mitzvah v'mitzvah. That might make sense regarding Kiddush and Berchas Hamazon, but not regarding 2 Soitas or 2 Egler Rufus. It's the same. It's the same kavanah. So why not do both at a time? One might argue that is why Tosfos suggests 2 different reasonings. In Soita, regarding those 4 mitzvahs that you don't really need any special kavanah, and anyway you're performing the same mitzvah twice, so what would the problem be regarding kavanah? That is why there Tosfos suggests a different time. shelo yehi nere kemasa. But when you say two brachas at once on the same kais, or combine two brachas, it's not so really nere kemasa. Maybe the time there is sheyeh liboy penui, two different brachas, two different mitzvahs. Why bundle them together? Maybe that is why Tosfos suggests two different reasons. However, it is very well known. Many achronim say, when we find two different Tosfos in two different Masechtas, it's not much of a kasha. There were hundreds of Baalei Tosfos, especially in different Masechtas. We find reason number 4, or maybe number 3, depends how we interpret the Chayodim. In Mari Abuhav, so in the new Torahs, published by Machon HaMaor, we have the Perish of Mari Abuhav and Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, and he lived 500 years ago. And in Simareisha and Aleph and Dina Kiddush, we find a new approach to Einois and Mitzvos Chavilos. So Mari Abuhav writes, if we do two mitzvahs, one after the other, at the same time, one right after the other, people might think that mitzvah number 2 is more important than mitzvah number 1 because we have a general concept of malam b'kodesh, velo moridin. So if you do two mitzvahs, one right after the other, that might suggest that mitzvah number 2 is more important than number 1. And if that is not the case, and they both are important, same level, same degree, that is why Einois mitzvahs chavilos. And once again I ask, isn't it enough to have Rashi, Rashbam, and Tosfos? Why do we need something new? And according to Mari Abuhav, well, that makes sense if we say Berchas Hamazon and Kiddush, two mitzvahs, two soitas, two mitzeroim, two egla arufis. Nobody would think number 2 is more important than number 1. They're the same. So why Einois mitzvahs chavilos? So once again, Mari Abuhav fits into one sugi, but not to the other. But it wouldn't be reasonable to say the same lashon, different sigis, different reasons. Doesn't make sense that the reasoning in one isn't the same as the rationale in another. If it's the same concept and the same lashon. And therefore, as in any other case, I think let's stick to the Rishonim with their yashas, with their pashtas. What they say fits into all the sources, and it makes sense, and we don't have to be mefalpel. So we find an interesting gloshon in the Rambam. Perek Chavtes Halacha Yud Gimel. The Rambam writes a halacha, and that is the halacha that we learn in Psachim Kuv Beis. Ein oimrim shtei kedushois al kos echad. Berchas Hamazon and Kiddush you don't say on the same kos. So we're dealing with the situation, a person was marach b'suda erev Shabbos. Peiros Mapu Mekadosh. So he wants to make Berchas Hamazon, and he needs to make Kiddush. So Berchas Hamazon and Kiddush you don't say on the same kos. And when the Rambam brings this halacha, Perek Chavtes Halacha Yud Gimel Afel Shabbos, the Rambam writes, Mepnei sheBerchas Hamazon veKiddush Hayom Shneim Mitzvos Shel Torah Heim, Shneim Mitzvos Shel Torah Heim. And when the Rambam writes anywhere in Mishnah Torah Mitzvos Shel Torah, he means to indicate that it's a mitzvah d'oraisa. That is the Rambam's definition, the Rambam's terminology. Mitzvah shel Torah means a mitzvah d'oraisa. And the Migdal Oiz says, so why does the Rambam emphasize Shneim mitzvahs shel Torah? Because the Rambam means to indicate that by a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, there is no halacha of ein oisen mitzvahs chavilos. No kpeda of ein oisen mitzvahs chavilos. That is the opinion of the Migdal Oiz. Migdal Oiz was somewhat a controversial commentary on the Rambam. He was a very early commentary. But at least 2 Gedolei Adoros don't have a very positive opinion about the Migdal Oiz. The Shach, in 2 different sources, writes, Shu mevalbel es advorim kedarkoi bekol mokoim, and the Marshal has a similar opinion about the Migdal Oiz. So the Shach and the Marshal are not very happy with the Migdal Oiz, but he is considered one of the major commentaries on the Rambam, and for as long as we remember, he's been around, and in all the Rambams we have the Migdal Oiz al adaf. So the Migdal Oiz argues, what the Rambam means to say is, by mitzvah d'Rabbanan there is no kpeid and eim arven simcha b'simcha. Why not? If the reasoning is nera olav kemasa, chavivim divrei soifrim, why wouldn't the same apply to mitzvahs d'Rabbanan? If it would be a gzeira, then we could say, ein gozlin gzeira le gzeira, but why not? Why wouldn't this halacha apply to a mitzvah d'Rabbanan as well? So the Chassam Sofer in Chedush Chassam Sofer in Psochim Kuv Beis has a different approach. He says, what the Rambam means to say is, if it would be one d'oraisa and the other d'Rabbanan, then there would be no kpeda. But if both are d'Rabbanan, of course the rule applies. The Rambam means to say, Bech Samozan and Kodesh are both d'oraisa. If one would be d'Rabbanan, then that wouldn't be a problem. And why not? So the Chassam Sofer writes, the Rabbanon legabe d'oraisa is kereshus. So why not? It would only be an honor for the mitzvah d'Rabbanan that we put them together with the mitzvah d'oraisa. So there would be no kpeda. That's what the Chassam Sofer writes. And then the Chassam Sofer asks a gewaltige kasha on the Rambam in Psochim Kuv Beis. When the Gemara says, "Hey, no, imrim shtei kedushas al kois echad," and we need a separate kois for Bech Samozan and for Kiddush, how about Yaknehoz? Everybody knows what Yaknehoz is, right? When Yom Tov falls, Motzei Shabbos, on the same kois we say 5 brochas: Yayin, Kiddush, Ner, Havdalah, Zman. So the Gemara asks, how do we say Kiddush and Havdalah on the same kois? Why wouldn't that be considered Chavilos? If you can't say Bech Samozan and Kiddush on the same kois, why could you say Kiddush and Havdalah on the same kois? Why don't Chazal ask about Yayin? No. That's Berchas Ananan. You could never drink without a bracha. Ner doesn't really have to do with the kois. Ner you say on the ner, not on the kois. Zman, well, we say it on the kois, but it's all about the Yom Tov. So what are we left with? Kiddush and Havdalah, that we say al ha-kois. So the Gemara answers, Kiddush v'Havdalta choda milsehi. Maybe along the way we will come back to the Gemara. But the Chassam Sofer asks on the kasha. The Rambam maintains, according to the Maggid Mishnah, that Havdalah is a mitzvah d'oraisa. However, Kiddush and Yom Tov is only mid'Rabbanan, because we don't find the mitzvah of Kiddush only on Shabbos. Zocher es Shabbos lekadshoy. So according to the Rambam, Kiddush Yom Tov is the Rabbanon. But Havdalah is d'oraisa. So what's the kasha? The Gemara asks the kasha, how do we say Kiddush and Havdalah in the same kois? Chavilos. According to the Rambam, a d'oraisa with the Rabbanon is not a problem. That's why the Rambam writes, Shneim mitzvah shel Torah. So, what would be the problem? So the Chassam Sofer brings, in the name of one of his balabatim, I don't remember, I think it's Reb Aaron Fulda me Frankfurt de Main, Haraboni. And it's uncommon that the Chassam Sofer quotes not one of the Gedolei Hador or previous generations, but one of the Balabatim. But it really is a beautiful teretz. So the Chassam Sofer quotes in his name that Havdalah is d'oraisa, but only Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechoil is d'oraisa. Hamavdil ben Kodesh lekodesh lekuli alm is the Rabbanon. So by Yaknehoz we're dealing with Hamavdil ben Kodesh lekodesh. So the Kiddush the Rabbanon, and the Havdalah is the Rabbanon. I mean Havdalah, not Kiddush. Havdalah ben Kodesh lekodesh is only the Rabbanon. So Havdalah Motzei Shabbos ben Kodesh lechoil is min haTorah. But Motzei Shabbos, when it's Yom Tov, is ben Kodesh lekodesh is no only the Rabbanon. So both are the Rabbanon. Kiddush Yom Tov the Rabbanon, Havdalah ben Shabbos Yom Tov the Rabbanon. But that wouldn't answer the Migdalais. But that is what the Chassam Sofer argues. Comes along the Ksav Sofer in Siman Chavav Tshuvas Chassam Sofer Orach Chaim. And he wasn't aware, probably, that the Chassam Sofer wrote this shtickle in Chedush Chassam Sofer, but he writes, I heard from my great father this kasha, and it's a gewaldige kasha. And he suggests a teretz of his own. So the Ksav Sofer argues, when the Rambam indicates that a d'oraisa and a d'Rabbanon, there is no kpeid of enos and mitzvahs, chavilos. that is only when first you do a diuraisa and then you do a derabanan. But if you do the derabanan and then the diuraisa, then that is a problem. Because it is nera olav kemasa diuraisa. Why are you mekayim the mitzvah diuraisa in haste? Why do you juxtapose the diuraisa and do it together with the rabbanon? So if you do the diuraisa first and then the rabbanon, that's not a problem. But if you do the rabbanon first and then the diuraisa, that is a problem. So the Ksav Sofer says, "Bayayin kiddush ner havdalah v'zman." Kiddush comes before avdalah. Kiddush is the rabbanon, avdalah diuraisa. That is a problem. So what have we got? Rashi, Rashbam, and Tosfos. Nera olav kemasa. Tosfos moyed cotton. Shi'ei liboy panui l'simcha. Then we have three different interpretations regarding Shittas Rambam. Migdalois, even two derabbanans. The rule doesn't apply. And why not? The Chavilos says the Uraisa derabbanan doesn't apply. The Ksav Sofer, similar to the Chavilos Sofer, but he says depends which comes first and which comes next.
That's opposite of the sequence we said before, that the second one would be considered more important.
Yes, that's a very good comment. The Ksav Sofer and the Maria Buav are contradict one another. So, an interesting question in the broader concept of Ein Oisen Mitzvos Chavilos. What would be the din if you could be Makayim two mitzvahs with one Maisa? Two in one. Not two mitzvahs on the same kais, in the same ma'amad, because all the sources, the three basic sources we have in the Gemara, in all of them, we actually are Makayim two mitzvahs with two Maisim. However, we bundle them together. We want to combine two brachas with one siyum, but nevertheless, in that siyum, it's a double siyum. We say matzmiach keren Yeshua uvoyne Yerushalayim. We would say hukeil hakadosh hachoinen liyodam das. So we are mentioning both brachas, both concepts, but on one bracha. We do say Berch Samos and Kiddush, but we wish to say them on the same kais. We are roitzeya both avodim and metar both mitzeroim and mashkim both soitis. However, why do them together? What would be the din if in one ma'isa we could perform two mitzvahs? And I want to give you three examples. The Turei Even is the Shagasarya, one of the greatest achronim, going back 300 years. So the Shagasari wrote Turei Even in various different mesechtos. One of them is Megillah Dav Zayin. The Turei Even is Mesupik. Could we combine Mishloach Monas and Matonas Levyonim? I have a neighbor, yes, he's a close friend, and he is also an Oni. He's desperately in need. So I'm going to send him a big Mishloach Monas, and I want to perform with that Mishloach Monas, Matonas Levyonim as well. Could we have two in one? That is the suffix of the Turei Even. But it never occurred to the Turei Even that might be a problem of Chavilos. The way he presents the question is, maybe the Tkonas Chachamim is you got to make three people happy. You need to send support for two of Yoinim, and besides the two of Yoinim, one of your friends, regardless whether he's a prince or a pauper, whether he's rich or poor. But you need to make three people happy. Ish l'reyehu, at least one, v'matonas levyoinim, two different levyoinim. And that would be the reason, according to the Turei Even, that you can perform both mitzvahs in one. And Rebbe Kiva against the Metofresh Tzadikei Baruch Chaim quotes the Turei Even, and the Bialocha quotes Rebbe Kiva. But they don't even discuss the concept of Chavilos till the Ksav Sofer comes along and Shuvas Or Chaim Semakuf Lametes, and the Ksav Sofer says, wouldn't that be a problem of Einois and Mitzvahs Chavilos? And I would say, so why didn't the Turei Even deal with the question of Chavilos? He actually asks the question. but the way he understood it and the way he presented it, it has nothing to do with Chavilos. The question is, in the essence of Tikkun Chazal, what were Anshe Knesset Agdola metaken? Is it merely you have to give, or is it about numbers? You need to make 3 different people happy, 2 of Yoinim and 1 person, regardless whether he's an Evian or not. So this would bring me to the conclusion, no, there is no kpeid in Chavilos if with 1 Maisa we could perform 2 mitzvahs. And the basic reasoning would be, according to Rashi and Rashbam and Tosfos, both in Psuchim and in Saita, it is about the way it would appear to a spectator. It's not about what it really is. Nera olav kamasa. Venera kememaher lifroi kamasoi. Everybody knows that Shmoines has 18 brochas. So why would you combine the 2 and say 1 siyam and 2 different brochas? You're in a rush. Why wouldn't you have a separate kais for Berchas Hamazon and another one for Kiddush? Because you're in haste. That is nera kepoirak olav masoi. And the same when Bezdin invites people that don't know each other. They have nothing to do with each other. And Bezdin invites them 2 soitas and 2 mitzarom and 2 avodim because Bezdin wants to get over with it. That is nera olav kamasa. But a person that sees me sending Mishloach Monos, he doesn't know what's in my heart. And that is not Nera Olav Kamas. I'm doing the same as everybody else does. The fact that I am a Kaim 2 in 1, it is about Nera Olav Kamas. And this is not Nera Olav Kamas. And therefore, I think, Ein lanu elu divrei Chazal. And that is the ashes of the Turei Oven. I really think that that's a big suffix. Maybe the Kped of Chazal was you need to make 3 people happy. And don't be stingy. Don't try to be Mekayim 2 in 1. Yes, send for 2 of Yoinim, and besides the 2 of Yoinim, send Mishloach Monos, whether he's an Evian or not. But it has nothing to do with Chavilos.
What's the alav kemasui? Is the alav on him? It sounds like it's on him, not on the observer.
Yes. But it is a nera. Nera. That's the way it appears. Oh, okay, that is a good question. But I still think it's about appearance, about the way it looks. Maybe not for others, maybe even for him. But I would like to check the Loshen of Rashi. Would somebody care to bring me a Gemara Soita and a Gemara Psuchim? Let's really check the exact wording, because maybe my memory isn't correct. Yes. That's a very good comment. It is quite clear that by Einois and Mitzvos Chavilos, it is only Alachat Chiladin, and you are Yoitz in the mitzvah. It is clear from the Gemara Psuchim, because the Gemara is Machalik, Yesh lo kois echod, yesh lo shnei koises. So the Gemara clearly says, if he has only 1 kois, then he would say both on 1 kois. So it's really a pillar, the Shiuri Korban in Perik Tes of Masechet Gittin. Mashma medvorov, that even b'di'evid you're not yotza. And it's a big pillar. So 2 of the later Achroinim really reject what he says, based on the pshitas that ein oisen mitzvahs chavilos is only lechatchila, and it is not b'di'evid. Chabinarov, doivev mishuram chelak alef semasamech, and before him Rabbi Yosef Engel, Beis Oitzer, ois alef klal pei hey. It is clear it's only lechatchila. The suffix of the Turei Oven is even b'di'evid. But the Ksav Sofer argues, even if we say it's not a kpeda b'di'evid, maybe it still would be a kpeda lechatchila. So I'm quoting the Loshen of the Ramban, Chavilos, de mechzei alai kemasei. Mechzei is about the way it looks. Olav means the bystander seems to be that it is a burden for him, not for the spectator, but for him. Nera olav kemasa. Mechze alei kemasa. That is the lotion of the Rashbam, Daf Kuv Beis. And I once again wish to check Rashi and Tosfos, Soita Ches Amud Aleph, and I think similar lotion, like I quoted. So Rashi says, Einois mitzvos chavilos, shenera, kemi shehoyu olav lemasoi v'memayer lifroik masoi. Shenera, kemi shehoyu olav. Once again, that's the way it appears to others. Nera, kemi shehoyu olav masa, and that is more or less the lotion of Tosfos. Mishum de mechze alei kemase, and that is the exact lotion of the Rashbam in Psachim Daf Kuv Beis. So my conclusion would be that when you perform two mitzvahs in one, with one ma'isa, there would be no kpeda of einois and mitzvahs, chavilos, which brings us to another Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi, which appears in Perek Beis the Shabbos and Saf Masechet Trumas. In Shabbos of Chof Hey we learn that Ein Madlikin Ner Shabbos b'Shemen Sreifa. Shemen Sreifa is Shemen of Truma Tameya. Truma Tameya Mitzvosa b'Sreifa. And a kohen is entitled Lahasikoi Tachas Tav Shiloi. It's Mutar Ba'anoah. Just like a kohen could eat Truma Tahira, he could burn Truma Tameya and benefit from its burning. Warm his house, cook his food, but Truma Tameya is also Ba'achila. And it's Mitzvosoi B'Sreifa. So there's a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. Daf Chofei Masechet Shabbos. What is the mitzvah? Why is Mitzvosoi B'Sreifa? But nevertheless, in Yerushalmi we find an aboya, which is not found in Bavli, whether a person could be madlik ner Chanukah b'Shem Sreifa. Why not? So there are different pshotim and different interpretations. Some achronim say we're dealing with a zar, not with a kohen, with a person that's not entitled neither to eat Truma Tahira nor to benefit from burning Truma Tameya. So why would it be mitzvah? Maybe because mitzvahs lav lahenois nitnu. It's just kiyum mitzvah. Some achronim suggest ksav soifer tshuvas or chaim kavav pri Yitzchak. Whenever I quote the pri Yitzchak, I'm happy because pri Yitzchak is Reb Itzela Peterburger, Reb Itzela Blazer, who was renowned as one of the greatest disciples of Evisol Salanter. And everybody learns the Sefer Koich Ve'or, which are the Sichas Musar of Reb Itzela. So Reb Itzela is known be'ikar as one of the great Balei Musar. First and foremost amongst the disciples, the Talmidim of Reb Sol Salanter, but he also was a tremendous Gaon. And he wrote the Pri Yitzchak, Shalas Tshuvas Pri Yitzchak, Chelik Beis Simachov. His interpretation is Einois mitzvahs chavilos, because it Sreifes Truma Tameya is a mitzvah, and it looks Ner Chanukah is a mitzvah. So maybe you cannot like Ner Chanukah with Truma Tameya because Einois mitzvahs chavilos. Let me tell you the story about the Pri Yitzchak, and sometimes when I speak about great Gedolim, I take the opportunity just telling the amazing stories. So why is the name of his Sefer Pri Yitzchak? He had no children to a relatively old age, and his wife was such a tzedekis, and she became aware that she can't have children, and she asked for a get, and he didn't want to give her a get. Because Aniyazu Maichota, she was a wonderful wife, and obviously they loved Itasha, and he didn't want to give her a get. And she insisted that she can't bear the thought that he's not going to have children because of her. And the Gadol Hador will not be Makayim Priya Vibe. And she insisted and she demanded a get. And with a heavy heart, he gave her a get, and he asked, what could I do for you to make you happy till the end of your days? And she she said she would like to go to Eretz Yisrael, and he bought her a house in Eretz Yisrael, and she made Aliyah, and she was Marach Yovim. She lived 100 years in Eretz Yisrael, and he remarried, and he had children from a second marriage. And I knew his Einikel, his son's son, was a member of my shul, and it's unbelievable because it's 100 years since he passed away, but he had children at a relatively very old age from Zivig Sheni. So when he printed his first volume, Pri Yitzchak, he writes in the Hagdama that the name of this sefer is Pri Yitzchak because those are the only peiros I leave in this world, because I wasn't zeichet to have children, and Divreim hen hem zechroinam, and that's why he named his sefer Pri Yitzchak, and that was when he published the first volume. But then his wife, the Tzedekis, insisted and forced him to give her a get, and he remarried and he had children. But the name of the second chelik still was Pri Yitzchak. So he had children and he had amazing swarm as well. So that's the story of Rabbi Tzala, Peterburger, and that's the story of the Pri Yitzchak. So in chelik Beis, that is his interpretation of the Gemara, the boy in Yerushalmi that we don't find in Bavli. Mayu lahadlik ner Chanukah betrumat tameh b'shem esleif, and that is some of the Achronim's interpretation of the Yerushalmi. We started off today's Shiur. Could one drink Dalet Kaises von Yayin Shel Shavios? Yayin Shel Shavios, there's a big machlokes whether there's a mitzvah to eat or drink Peiros HaKadoshim b'Kedusha Shavios. Chazon Ish argues no, there's no mitzvah. There's a mitzvah of Kedusha Shavios, but the consumption of Peiros that have Kedusha Shavios is not a mitzvah. Others argue, according to the Ramban, that it is a mitzvah. So the interpretation of the Gedoyle Galitzia, Reb Mendel Steinberg, Baal Shalos Tshuvas Machs Avrom, Reb Nochem Weidenfeld, who was the brother of Chabina Rav, they both suggest maybe the boy in the Yerushalmi is Ein Oisen Mitzvos Chavilos Chavilos. If there's a mitzvah to eat Peiros Shvius and there's a mitzvah to drink Dalet Kaises, then Ein Oisen Mitzvos Chavilos Chavilos. But I don't think so, because I made clear the common ground between these three sugyas is, with the very same Maisa, you could perform two mitzvahs. Lighting Ner Chanukah b'Shem Esleif is two mitzvahs. Drinking Dalet Koises from Yayin Shel Shvius is two mitzvahs. Mishloach Monos HaMetonos Lev Yoinim is two mitzvahs. So as I made clear just a few minutes ago, I think in that case there's no kpeid of Chavilos. I would argue it even would be a Maila and a Hidur mitzvah. Like the Gemara says, Sudas Yomter from Erev Tavshilin, Kiven de Esavet bo mitzvah choda, Esavet bo mitzvah achrita. That is Hidur mitzvah. Using Lecha Mishnah, Erev Tavshilin is Hidur mitzvah. So if you could drink Dalet Koises, Shemen Shel Shvius, definitely wouldn't be a chasson, maybe even a Hidur. Mishlach Monos Metonos Evyoinim would be different. Like the Svor of the Turei Even. You need to give from what HaKadosh Baruch Hu bestowed upon you to make three different people happy. If not for that Svora, there would be no problem. In Chavilos, and that is why there is no problem whatsoever when you drink Kois Berchas HaMazon and Kois Kiddush and Kois of Berchas HaHalal, and those are the Dalet Koises. Yes, you are Mekayim two mitzvahs. The mitzvah of Dalet Koises and the mitzvah of Berchas HaMazon, no problem whatsoever. I actually mean to say that besides the point I just made, when you're not bundling together different mitzvahs in a way that the spectator, the beholder would say, is it a burden for him? Why is he bundling them together? Mechza olav kemasei. But when you're performing one mitzvah in a normal fashion, you're drinking Dalet Koises, not everybody drinks Dalet Koises, but it happens to be Yayin Shel Shvius. You're lighting Ner Chanukah like you do every year, but it happens to be Shemen Sleifa. You're sending Mishloach Monos. Who would ever guess that you're Mekayim the mitzvah of Metonos Evyoinim as well? That would be no problem regarding the concept of Chavilos, in my opinion. So what would be pshat in the boy of Yerushalmi whether one could be Makayim Mitzvos Dalat Koises B'Shemesh Shel Shvius, Minchas Rosh Shvius Siman Lamed Ches. There's a discussion, but that no longer has anything to do with the sugya of Ein Oisen Mitzvos Chavilos. So we'll leave it for some other opportunity at some other time. So we have discussed the sugya of Ein Oisen Mitzvos Chavilos, which I find to see a very interesting sugya, but I actually find every sugya to be a very interesting sugya. So we have dealt with different concepts and different ideas and different svoras in the sugya of Ein Oisen Mitzvos Chavilos. Coming back to the Vacha de Kaparsha, Dalet L'Shoyne Shel Geula, Vehoitzeisi, Vehitzalti, Vegoalti, Velokachti. As I mentioned last week, the Rambam defines Chumash Shemois as Sefer HaGolus VeHaGeula. And he defines Chumash Bereishis as Sefer HaYetzirah. So many times, especially when we learn Chumash Bereishis, I mentioned that the Ramban asks, only a small part of Parshas Bereishis deals with creation. Why would the entire Sefer be defined as Sefer HaYetzirah? The Ramban asks a similar question regarding Chumash Shemois. Well, we can say a very small portion of Chumash Shemois deals with Golas HaGeula, but definitely not the entire Sefer. Shmois ve'eru boi b'shalach, it's all over. By b'shalach, we already said Shiras Hayam. So the majority of the Sefer is still before us. So why would Chumash Shemois be defined as Sefer HaGolas VeHaGeula? The Ramban explains the concept of Geula. So Geula is not about personal freedom alone, not even about national sovereignty. Ad asher el malois avoisom yashuvun. It is only when Klal Yisrael achieves the heights of their forefathers that they would be considered a redeemed people. So the Avos HaKadoshim, before the Golos ever started, were Zoche to Hashos HaShchina. Their homes were homes of Shchina. So it is only when Klal Yisrael leaves Eretz Mitzrayim and they will achieve the heights of their forefathers and they will be Zoche to Hashos HaShchina, it is only then that would be Shleimus HaGeula. Ad asher al malas avoisim yeshuvan. And therefore, the Ramban explains, the finality of the Geula was not by Shiras Hayam. It was part of the process. It was from Eretz Mitzrayim, Kirvona Lifnei Har Sinai. Kabbalas HaTorah is part of the process, but it still is only part of the process. It is not the end. It is only when they were Zoche to the Mishkan and the Shechina was Shiur in the Mishkan that they were considered and defined as Shibchu Geulim. And therefore the entire Sefer is Sefer HaGolas VeHaGeula. Because Chumash Shemois essentially has three sections. Yes, Shemois ve'eru boi b'shalach is about Golas Mitzrayim and Geulas Mitzrayim. Then we have Yisro Mishpotim. Yisro Mishpotim is Kabbalas HaTorah. And then we have Truma, Tetzava, Kitiso, Veyakel, Pekudai, 5 parshas that deal exclusively with the Mishkan Vekelov. And Chumash Shemois in its entirety is Sefer HaGolus VeHaGeula. So the story starts in Parsha Shemois, dealing with Koshi HaShiabud. Besuras HaGeula, in the beginning of Parshas Ve'era, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, go tell the people, I will redeem them and get them out of Eretz Mitzrayim. Ve'hoitzeisi, ve'itzalti, ve'gualti, ve'lokachti eschem li la'am. Those are the Dalet L'Shonos Shel Geula that we have to remember for eternity. And that is why we drink Dalet Koises B'Leila Sedek Keneged Dalet L'Shonos Shel Geula. So one of the ideas I wrote in Agodah Shel Pesach Minchas Osher is, what is the essence of these four L'Shonos? I don't believe it's just L'Shonos and they all mean the same. No, they don't mean the same. V'hoitzeisi, v'hitzalti, v'go'alti, v'lokachti are four different stages. Different stages of Yetzias Mitzrayim and different aspects of Golus and Geula. So we all know that slavery is a terrible phenomenon. It's a painful phenomenon. And why is that? Because whatever we have read about slavery, we know that by human nature, people take advantage of the weak. So masters in history used to take advantage of their slaves, and slaves suffered from terrible cruelty and brutality, and they were exploited. And that is the suffering of slaves, besides the fact that they toil and they are always overworked. So it is about pain and suffering. It is about toil and work. And it is about the lack of freedom. And man strives for freedom. People weren't supposed to work for each other. People are supposed to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not each other. Ba'avur zeh osu Hashem li, al mena shetiu li la'avodim. Ki avodai heim, asher hoitzeisi oisam me'eretz Mitzrayim. So the first stage is V'hoitzeisi eschem etachas sivlois Mitzrayim. Sivlois is pain and suffering. And then V'hitzalti eschem ma'avoidosam, from work. And then V'go'alti eschem, I will redeem them and they will be a free people. And then the fourth stage is Kirvas Elokim. V'lokachti eschem lila'am Voisi lochem Elokim, and that is the stage of Ruchnius, of Geulas Mitzrayim. So an idea that I also spoke about many times, and this is not really pshat. It's either a vort or maybe a vertel, but I still think it's good, and it has appealed to me. So we have Dalet Koishes Shel Yain Keneged Dalet L'Shonos Shel Geula. V'hoitzeisi, v'hitzalti, v'go'alti, v'lokachti. Between cuss number 1 and cuss number 2, between number 2 and 3, you could drink, you could eat, you could do anything. There is no concept of hefsek. Between 3 and 4, you can either eat or drink. So maybe essentially it is about some of us in Eretz Yisrael and throughout the world feel that we would be happy with the first 3. Number 4 really has less appeal to us. That's fine. We're happy to be coming back to Eretz Yisrael. Some of us feel less comfortable with Velokachti eschem li la'am v'hoisi lochem la'elokim. So we want to indicate it is all about cuss number 4. And the first 3 are just a prelude leading to number 4. It is actually about cuss number 4. Yes, we cannot get to cuss number 4 unless Voitzeisi eschem etachas sivlos Mitzrayim, v'itzalti eschem yaveidosam, v'go'alti eschem Bezroya netuya b'shvotim gedoylem, but it's all velokachti eschem lila am v'hoisi lochem la'elakim, and that is why between number 3 and number 4 You cannot make any hefsek. Essentially, that is what Geulas Mitzrayim is all about. So this Vasemis says in Birchas HaGeula in Leila Seder, we say, Al Geula Seinu va'al pedus nafsheinu. And what is the Kefal HaLashon? Geulas Mitzrayim, yes, it's about slavery and freedom. It is about national freedom and national sovereignty, but it is also about Kerves Elokim. Velokachti eschem lila'am v'yisylachem le'elokim. So everybody agrees that one of the basic components of a Godeshul Pesach of Sipi Yetzias Mitzrayim is Matchel beGnus u'Mitzrayim b'Shvach. However, there's a Machloikes Rav and Shmuel, which Gnus and which Shvach. Rav says, Metchila oivda avodah zoro haya v'seinu, v'kervani amokum la'avodah, and Shmuel says, no, avodah me'inu, v'kodesh baruch hu hoitziyonu. And our minig is both. And in our Agoda, we say both. So, what we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for, Belela said, it is, yes, we are free people. We no longer suffer the yoke of Basa V'Dam. But we also thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for bringing us closer to Him. And as the Ramban explains, the culmination of Yetzias Mitzrayim was not by Shiras Hayam. That was just part of the process. Kabbalas HaTorah and Ashroas HaShchina, those are Shleimus HaGeula. And that is the Kefal HaLashon. We thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Geula Seinu va'al pedus nafsheinu. So here also we should be Zoicha. When we learn the Sugya of Dalet Koises, we should be Zoicha. Ki yamei Tzeichem me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu neflois. We should be Zoicha b'kora b'yameinu to a Geulas Olam. We should once again be able to say Shiru Chadosho. B'bias Mashiach Tzidkeinu, we will once again say Shira al Geulaseinu va'al pedus nafsheinu ki ayin ba'ayin yiru b'shov Hashem Tzion v'niglo kvoid Hashem v'ro kol bo seyachtav ki pi Hashem diber b'mheiro v'yomeinu amen.